I want to talk about being a victim. We often feel like victims. You know, it could be relationship related. If we were in an abusive relationship, like a physically abusive relationship, or it didn't have to be physically abusive. It could be emotionally abusive or verbally abusive. If we were in a type of situation like that, we could feel like we were the victims. And if we were to go to the law, say we were in a relationship where there was domestic violence, and if we went to the law would consider you a victim of domestic violence. And there's, I'm sure there's other scenarios, in which, we have felt like victims. I'm going to share a different spin on that. And this may be controversial to some, but nevertheless, what I'm about to share with you is the truth. And if you can accept it, it will empower you to transform your life. Even if you don't feel like you've been a victim of anything, it doesn't matter. What I'm about to share with you, if you can accept it, if you can receive it, and if you trust it enough to put it to the test, or if you don't trust me enough to put what I said to the test, set out to prove me wrong, then what you'll discover is this is a very powerful truth, and you can totally transform your life with this and create a life better than anything you could imagine. So all the scenarios that I mentioned, in any scenario you could think of where one might be considered a victim, the real culprit is never identified. We feel like, we're victims of this person and we're victims of that person. We could be victims if we were fired from a job unjustly. We were a victim. If we were discriminated against, we were a victim. Discriminated against for whatever reason. The color of your skin, your weight, your ethnicity. There's tons of reasons you could be discriminated against. Whatever reason, you could feel like a victim. The list is endless. So if you have ever felt like a victim, just plug in your experience into what I'm about to say. We are never victims of other people. Doesn't matter the scenario. And I'm not talking about children. I'm talking about adults. I'm talking about people that know right from wrong. We're never victims of other people. And when we take that route, that approach, it's just another way that we refuse to take responsibility for ourselves and for our actions. In this case, though, I can understand how some people may not be able to understand why. So I'm going to explain it. I can understand how this won't make sense to some people. So I'm going to explain it. The only person we are ever, let me see if I'm saying this right. The only person we are only ever victims of is ourselves. We're never victims of whoever. We're victims of ourselves. And this is why, because all life is one big cycle of sowing and reaping. Nothing just happens. Nothing is just random. Excuse me. Every experience that we have is governed by laws. Everything in this universe is governed by laws. But in our personal lives, everything we will ever experience, past, present, future, is governed by laws. And there are no exceptions to this. And so when I say, we are, sounds weird, the only person we are ever only a victim of is ourselves. This can mean several things, but sometimes this means that we're a victim of our ignorance. There's a saying that says ignorance is bliss. And, there is a certain degree of bliss in ignorance. But there is also a cost to be ignorant. And that cost can sometimes be very expensive. That cost could sometimes be your life. And as I'm saying, we are very often victims of our ignorance. Many of us are ignorant of the truth I just shared, that life is just one big cycle of sowing and reaping. The energy you give is returned back to you. The energy you put out into the universe in thought, word, or deed it is multiplied and returned back to you. Now, you may think about some things that you've been through and not be able to connect the dots and not be able to see how this makes sense. But whether you can connect the dots or not, whether, you don't see how this would make sense, regarding a specific situation that you've been through, or maybe that you're in right now, it's really irrelevant, because the truth remains that every experience that we will ever experience is governed by laws. It's all cause and effect. Nothing is just randomly happening. We reap what we sow. And just understanding this one powerful truth, and trusting it enough to just put it to the test, it'll transform your life. It'll give you power over your life. It will allow you to take your power back. It will allow you to take the steering wheel. Because see, we all have power over our lives, and we don't realize this. Many times we don't realize this. Many of us don't realize this because we don't understand the laws that this power works by. So what's happening in many of our lives is we're experiencing a lot of things that we don't want to experience, not connecting the dots that we're simply reaping what we've sown somewhere in the past. We're not connecting the dots. And so instead of trying to understand why we keep having these fucked up experiences, we get offended by them. We feel like victims. You could feel like a victim of a higher power, of the higher power, or whatever terminology you use. You could feel like you're a victim of God. I felt that for much of my life, that I was a victim, that God liked to see me suffer. I mean, if that was the case, you're pretty much fucked, because there's nothing you could do about that. I really used to believe that, though. But you'll feel like a victim when you don't understand that everything is cause and effect. Everything, whatever situation, if you're in a situation right now, it's governed by laws. If you're in an abusive relationship, it's governed by laws. If you're just in a toxic relationship, it's governed by laws. Healthy relationships are governed by laws. Happiness is governed by laws. Peace of mind is governed by laws. Stress, depression, anxiety are all governed by laws. Poverty is governed by laws. Abundance, wealth, being rich or being poor, being overweight or being in shape, whatever you can name, it's all governed by laws. And if we don't understand this, then we'll feel like we're victims. So, the scenario of being in, an abusive relationship where, domestic violence was a regular occurrence. You feel like you're a victim of the abuser. The law would say you're a victim of the abuser. But who you're really a victim of is yourself. You're a victim of toxic thinking, of your own toxic thinking. You're a victim of your toxic beliefs. You're a victim of your toxic programming. And these things is what caused you to stay in that relationship. I said this in another video. But you should never, there shouldn't even be, if we were all healthy, spiritually healthy, there would be no such thing of an abusive relationship. It's impossible for a spiritually healthy person to be in an abusive relationship. Because worst case scenario, they will get abused once. And it could say it totally catches them off guard. But they find themselves being abused verbally, emotionally, mentally, physically, whatever. But it will only happen one time, because a spiritually healthy person is out of there after that. That is the last time you will treat that person like that. It's impossible for them to be a victim. 'Cause they'll leave. And all the toxic thought patterns and beliefs that would cause a person to stay in that type of situation, a spiritually healthy person doesn't even think like that. Wouldn't even entertain those thoughts if they were to pop up in their head. There's no negotiating. That relationship is over. Period. We're victims of ourselves. We're victims of our own toxicity. We're victims because spiritually we're unhealthy. Because we forget that we are spirit. We're not human beings. And so many of us have gotten so attached to our humanity that we've completely and totally forgotten who we are. I hear people say all the time, we're only human. I'm only human. I can only do so much. I'm only human. You're only human. There's only so much you can do. You're only human. These are people that don't know who they are. Because we're not human at all. We're spirit. We are 100% spirit in a human form, having a human experience. But we're spirit. We're eternal. We're powerful. We're victims of our ignorance. And this ignorance is, we're ignorant in areas we shouldn't be ignorant in. Like, we're all ignorant of something. Like, none of us knows everything. But there's certain things that you can't afford to be ignorant about. You can be ignorant about how to repair a car, or I don't know, fucking flying a spaceship. Or you can be ignorant about investing in the stock market. You can be ignorant about real estate. You can be ignorant about a lot of things, and we all are ignorant of a lot of things. But again, there are certain things that you cannot afford to be ignorant about. And one of those things is just who you are, like who you really are. The truth that you are not a human being, that you are spirit. And you're just having a human experience. Another thing you can't afford to be ignorant about is universal laws. As I was speaking earlier about how laws govern our experiences. Every experience, it's all cause and effect. It's all sowing and reaping. These are things that dictate our experience, or how we experience life. Our happiness. Depends on us knowing these truths and consciously cooperating with them to get desired results. Our peace of mind, just the entire quality of our life and our experience for our short time here on this earth as humans. Having a human experience is all determined by us knowing who we are and understanding the laws that govern the experiences that we want. So You have to figure out what you want. Like, what do you want? Most people know what they want. At least in a general sense. Like, most people want to be happy. Like, if, do you want to be, most people, if I ask, do you want to be happy, would say, yeah. Most people want to be happy. I would dare say everyone wants to be happy. Now, happiness is different things to different people, but we all want to be happy. Okay, so then, boom, what makes you happy? What do you like to do that you know of right now that makes you happy? What are the laws that govern that? Like, what does happiness mean to you? And then you find out the laws that govern that. A lot of people want to have peace, like peace of mind. What are the laws that govern peace? You find that out. It's not hard to find these things out, but you find it out and then you cooperate. You trust in those laws enough to obey them, follow them the best that you can. We are victims of our ignorance. I really want to break that down more, but I really don't know how. Like, there's so many scenarios and like this, like, I don't know how to break that down any further than I already have, but it's like, there's just so many areas we could be ignorant in. A lot of us don't love ourselves because we're ignorant of who we are. And because we don't love ourselves, we attract certain experiences. And they're not healthy experiences. They're toxic and negative experiences. They're dark experiences. And we think we're victims of these experiences, or the people behind the experiences. But we're victims of ourselves. Because if you loved yourself, like if you knew who you were and you loved yourself, there's just a lot of toxic shit that you would never experience. It would just be impossible for you to experience. And it would open you up to a world or worlds of all new experiences, positive and healthy experiences. I mean, pretty much at the root of it all is the ignorance of who we are. And ignorance is not bliss. It's costly. Like everything you've suffered as a result of your ignorance. Like, you're not a victim of the narcissist or the abuser or the government or the fucking asshole boss or the snitch ass like, you're not victim of the cheating spouse or like you are a victim of yourself. You are a victim of your ignorance. And that's the bottom line. Like that's all it is to it. And so, if you can accept this, if you receive this, if you can trust this, and enough to just put it to the test. Just test it. We are supposed to. Like, if you are a truth seeker, which you should be, like, if you're smart, you're a truth seeker. Because there's no greater power in the universe than truth. And everything that you want, you will only obtain it through truth. Every good gift and every perfect gift comes as a result of you trusting in the truth. But in order to find truth or discover truth, when you hear people say different things, like you hear me talking now, you got to put it to the test. Prove it for yourself. That's the only way you'll be able to know and trust in it, is when you prove it to yourself. You'll see what I'm telling you is right. I've already, I prove it to myself every day. I have been for over decades, over 20 years. Like, I've been, it's just part of my journey, seeking truth out. And, I listen to everything that everybody say. Well, like, whatever I hear, and, I put it to the test. What stands, stands. What falls, falls. If you can receive what I'm saying, just start putting it to the test, and then just start, boom, applying it to your life. He said I'm a victim of my ignorance. Okay, so let me try to, get unignorant. I didn't know how else to say that. You know what I mean, though, right? Truth is the only thing that can set you free. And it can set you free from whatever. Like, it doesn't matter what it is. Nothing else has the power to do that. Only truth. In whatever area of your life you're unhappy in, it's because you're ignorant. It's because you don't know the truth. It's because you're deceived. It's because you are trusting lies to be true. There's no other cause. There's no other reason. So I'm going to wrap that up here, just because I've went much longer than I thought I did. But yeah, I'd like to know what you think about that. So let me know in the comments.